Last week I talked to you a bit about how to explain why an author uses a quotation in an article. Don't just tell me the author did, but the big question that we ask is why the author used it. The author does not have to use the quotation. The author could simply paraphrase, put it into his or her own words. So why use a quotation? Why do that? Authors do that for a number of reasons. And we talked about why. We saw examples, we were pulling up articles, we were looking at quotations, talking about why the author uses them, and I gave you, I believe, at least 4 different reasons an author might use a quotation. And then I asked you to take a look at quotation in your writing and answer 3 questions. 1, what is the quotation? Write it. Secondly, who is the speaker? And don't just tell me it's Joe Smith. Say, Joe Smith, Director of the National Weather Service. So identify the person, not just by name, but also by position. The third task was the one that was a problem. The third task was to identify one of the reasons why the author used the quotation. And you had reasons in your notes. But many of you, in fact, most of you, just summarized the quotation or repeated something else that you already said. You didn't tell me why. You told me what they said. Those are not the same questions. And this why question is the more important one. It's the more advanced one. It's the more adult question. I know you can repeat all day long. I know you can copy down. But answering the why question helps you think about it. So these 3 tasks you have to do for tomorrow's current events report. You got to pull a quotation. Write the quotation in the blank. You have to tell me who the identity of the speaker is, and then you have to tell me why the author included this quotation. And since so many of you just really weren't getting there on that in-class activity, I'd like to cover it again. So take a look at your in-class activity, look at whatever comments I've written, and ask questions as we go through this. We're going to sort of go over the notes again. Let's see. Amira, can you start me out? Give me a reason an author would include a quotation in an article. Give the character of the speaker. Excellent. By the way, you don't have to write this down right now. Let's just talk. There'll be time for writing in a moment. We want to give the character of the speaker. Thank you, Amira. If I'm writing an article about Michelle Obama, and I want the readers to know about her, to kind of meet her, to understand who she is, what must that article contain? Gabe? Facts, sure. But I really want the speaker to know who she is, to understand her, to kind of get to meet her. What must that article contain? Wow, silence. Brandon, thank you for saving me. Because if I want to know about Brandon Oatman, Gabe could tell me all about him. Or I could hear some facts and then hear from Brandon himself. I'll be much more likely to know who he is if I actually listen to him. That's why quotations appear. Give the character of the speaker. Help me understand who that person is. Excellent, thank you. James, give me another reason why somebody would use a quotation.
Know what they're saying.
Yes, you're getting right to the idea of authority and trust. James, how does that work? How can a quotation give me as a writer authority? How can a quotation make the reader trust me?
Like if it's like a person like saying, they could I put it in quotations so they know it's like what you're saying. Like,
Why is it important though? You're totally on the right track. That's okay. James, what makes it important is the person that's speaking it. So I'm not a doctor, right? Let's say I wanted to write an article about some kind of medical issue. Somebody has an injury in a football field. Who am I going to quote to give myself medical authority? That's right. So if I quote the doctor, that doctor's medical authority kind of transfers over to me a little bit, even though I'm not a doctor. So I suddenly sound like I know what I'm talking about medicine, even though I really have no clue what I'm talking about medicine. So it gives me authority. Good. So I could quote Dr. Jane Doe. Who's Jane Doe? Doesn't matter. She's a doctor. That's what matters. And her authority transfers to me. And suddenly you trust me more. Ethan, give me another reason. I can think of two others that we discussed.
Present interest, use of it, present interest in language.
That's right. Interesting language. That's a cool quotation. I don't care who spoke it. It just sounds good. And that's where these weird things we have called sound bites come from. Statements that sort of stick with us because they just sound really cool. The good example we had was an article from the Chicago teacher strike that we need teachers, we need books, that chanting rallying cry at the strike. That one was good. And that would stick with you. Last reason. Throw it open.
The interest in maybe just people like get the reader's attention.
Yes. And stimulate the reader's emotion. So may make them excited, might make them afraid, might make them laugh. What was the last reason? Okay, let me set it up for you, and then you tell me what this last reason is. I'm writing an article about the Democratic National Convention. I quote Bob from the Democratic National Convention floor. Bob is nobody. He's just an average person off the street working for the Democratic committee in his local town. But I quote Bob. Why did I quote Bob? It creates a closer connection to the event because Amanda, what does he have that I don't? He's been there. There you go. I quote somebody with first-hand experience. Bob is nobody. No offense to Bob. But Bob is nobody, but he was there. And that creates something. These are the four reasons that we talked about. And when you're filling in that last blank, the third section, I want you to use these reasons. I want you to use my language. So you hear me talking now? The words that I'm using, and I'll highlight those in a moment, are the words that I should see. But when I was reading your step 3, I didn't really see any echo of what I was talking about, with a couple exceptions. That's our second time going over these points. Here's time number 3, and this is the time that you might want to write this down. Let's go over it a little bit more completely. Sorry, my computer has decided to slow down. Waking up. All right, so the first one that we covered, that Amira reminded us of, give the character of the speaker. You are focusing on a person as a subject. The reader should be more familiar with that person. So quote him. I want to know about Brandon. I want to hear Brandon's voice and his words. If I write an article about Michelle Obama and I never include a quotation, I'm a poor writer. These are, by the way, basically a rewrite of the notes from last week. So if you have something like this similar already on the page, it doesn't hurt to copy it down again. These notes are a little bit more complete. In other words, I'm relying less on my voice and more on what's up there. Alyssa, can you look at the string of words that I've written up there and tell me which words are pretty important that you might see in your own writing? What words you're going to steal from me and use? More familiar. Yeah, good. I like more familiar, and I do like that you brought up reader. I expect you guys to talk about the reader. It's always an impact on the reader. Why did I do it? Because it affects the reader in a certain way. And Alyssa's right. That idea of familiar is good. So make sure the word reader is somewhere in your answer. If this is the reason, Make sure familiar or a synonym. Introduce. Make sure something like that is in there. The next reason that James mentioned, add authority to the author. Make that article sound like it carries facts, not opinions, especially on sensitive subjects. Matthew, what do you think? Important word up there or words that you might want to steal? Besides reader, we know reader, but what else is good? Facts, good. Give me another one. Yeah, well, the not opinions idea. One more big word up there. Nope. What are they feeling? The authority. Okay. And there was a word up there. Did anybody see a word up there previously when I was responding to what James was saying? Another good word. What do you feel? Yeah. True, but if I feel that you are an authority, what am I giving you? What am I feeling in you? A word that's not up there, that I did write up there before. Trust, yes. So you might use the word trust also. So again, if this, and by the way, this second one is a very common reason to use quotations. You might see it a lot. So if you're using this, I expect to see trust, authority, and I always expect to see the word reader somewhere in there. Here's that present an interesting use of language idea. So we still have reader as an important word. Jesse, you have any idea about another word up there that might draw my interest as important? Interested, yeah, very good, thank you. But interested can be a little bit vague. So you might want to explain how they're interested. It could make them excited. It could make them angry. It could make them fearful. It could make them humored. That means they laugh. Carter, what are all those four words? What do they have all have in common? There you go. They're all feelings. So if this is where you're going, tell me how it's making the reader feel. How is the reader feeling interested? Specify. It could be a number of different ways. So if somebody uses a quotation from a famous celebrity in which they make a horribly silly mistake, poor word choice, then maybe that makes the reader laugh. All right, and finally, there's that close connection. Make the reader feel that they share that first-hand perspective on events or the event in question. This is also, like the second one, this is a very common reason to use that. I expect to see all 4 of these, not in yours. I mean, as I read 80-some current events reports, I expect to see all of them in some way. This last one I expect to see a lot, and I expect to see the authority one a lot, because that's pretty common. So Bridget, what do you think? Out of that string of words, what's pretty important that you might use in your own discussion? Connection. Very good. What else seems pretty powerful? First-hand perspective. There you go. Use these words, folks. Words capture thoughts, and if you're using the words that I'm asking for, then you're probably thinking the thoughts that I'm asking you to think. So don't feel like you're copying. You should be kind of mimicking the way that I speak about it, and then you start thinking about it in the same way. Questions on any of that? All right, keep in mind that now it's in your notes twice. You've done an in-class activity, received some comments from me. This will be posted on YouTube, and you'll receive some more help tomorrow, which means it gives me the license to grade you based upon how well you do it, not just if you do it. For this first activity, granted you probably had no clue what you were doing, so you tried it. You're in full points just if you did it in class. This next one, I'll expect some more quality material out of you. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to tell you how I'll help you out with that. So are there any questions remaining regarding these facts? Good.